For years, all we knew of Rox was that he was a fearsome pirate with an insanely powerful list of allies. But in recent chapters of One Piece, we finally learned just how full this man's life was before it was unfortunately snuffed out. Born from the infamous Davy family, making him a Davy D. Jones ancestor, Xebec covered his real last name, Davy, with Rox to keep hidden from the world government. If they knew the truth, they would have came after him for his bloodline, since Davy Jones was one of the direct enemies of Emu during the Void Century. Not much is known about Rox's childhood or family, except that being a part of the Davy lineage put him in danger. About 56 years before the series begins, Rox attacked Mary Geoise during the most important time of year, the Reverie. At the same time, he took 5 kings hostage and kept the upper hand, as well as straight up killing a Marine admiral. And then he invaded the Room of Flowers and came across Emu themselves. After the ruler showed no interest in the king's well-being, Rox promised to come back and defeat Emu. While escaping, he met the king of Elbaf, Harold, and though they initially fought each other in a wild show of strength, they eventually had to work together to get free of the pursuers. He even told Harold exactly where to attack to make sure their escape was successful. It was also the moment Rox decided that he would try to recruit Harold to his team the next time they meet. This event was enough to have Rox's name in the record books, but of course, he didn't stop there. For the most part, Rox only attacked the world government and affiliates with his ship and crew, and the Gates of Justice were no exception to his aggressive reign. Whenever he faced other pirates, it was usually to recruit their members or take their subordinates through a Davy-back fight. 8 productive years after the attack on the Reverie, Rox had a crew and sailed to Elbaf for Harold. He asked his son Loki, the only one there at the time, to tell his father to hurry back so that he could join Rox's crew. But when Loki rejected the request, he was attacked as a way to force Harold's hand in returning faster. But not unlike Loki's answer, it was a no from Harold's part, since he wanted to build a peaceful relationship with the world government and the rest of the world. At this point, Rox already intended to take control of Hachinosu, the pirate island, as it was largely without any structure or leader. So he knew that if he succeeded at capturing this uncontrollable place filled with criminals, even the world government wouldn't be a threat to him and his future goals. The rejection didn't deter Rox from continuing to ask Harold to join his crew, similarly to how Luffy pesters people multiple times to join him. But Rox did it for 4 years. Talk about dedication. And then he did the unthinkable. He took over Hachinosu with his crew, making it their official base that attracted many more powerful pirates. With one goal down, Rox had more lined up, besides getting Harold on his team, that is. One was to acquire 2 specific devil fruits, and the other was finding a missing group of giants called the Galila. Both these objectives related to Harold interestingly. One of the fruits he needed was on Elbaf, and he had hoped the king would consume it, and the other speaks for itself. After some time passed, Rox and his crew went after an organization that supposedly collected donations for good, and of course just used them to line their pockets. Doesn't this seem like something the Revolutionary Army would do? Anyway, when the Marines showed up with the battleships, Rox didn't hesitate to attack them as well. Just 2 years of being a crew was enough for the Rox pirates to sink dozens of ships and cause a mess for ports, towns, and even a kingdom. With so much harm being done, this period of time was dubbed the Rox Era, and even had numerous cover-ups. He thought this would be a good time to ask Harold to join him again, especially since he heard that the King of Elbaf had clashed with the world government too. But again, he didn't want to join to work on the reputation of the giants. Then, 42 years prior to the series, the leader of the Kuja pirates, Shakuyaku, aka Shaki, quit and decided to settle on Hachinosu to run a bar. This meant that she immediately stole the heart of not only Rox, but all of his male crew members as well. But that didn't mean that he couldn't fall for someone else, which he did. He secretly married a woman named Eris 2 years later and had a son with her that we all know named Teach, aka Blackbeard. Rox loved them so much that he sent them away to live on his home island of God Valley without him, so that they'd be safe from any unwanted attention. Besides being interested in Harold as a potential partner in crime, literally, Rox considered Goldie Roger his rival, and this was only made worse when Roger would show up to Shaki's bar on Hachinosu, but he couldn't fight him there due to Shaki's rules. That didn't stop them from clashing when they were outside of the island, though. Sadly, the next time Rox visited his buddy Harold, he was greeted with violence, since the giant was told to kill him if he wanted Elbaf to be considered an ally of the world government. And despite Rox trying to convince his pal that the giants would just be used by the world government because of their power, Harold saw no other way to ensure his citizens could live freely. The fight ended without a victor, but I'd say they both lost pretty big, having damaged their longtime friendship. Jumping to 39 years before the series begins, Rox and his crew found out that Shaki was kidnapped. And though he didn't want to pursue her romantically anymore, she was still a dear friend and a staple on Hachinosu for many. It took an entire year to finally figure out where she was and who had taken her. The world government, of course. And it wasn't just to be sold on auction like Cammy, it was for the Noble's infamous native hunting competition, where countless innocent people were put in danger for entertainment. Rox went without delay and told his crew to follow along, pretending as if it was solely for Shaki's release, when in fact that he had to ensure his wife and child would be saved as well, since the game took place at God Valley. But it wasn't smooth sailing to get his family away. Actually, it required Rox to not only ask for Harold to pass, but to reveal his true identity and his secret family in hopes of swaying the giant. It wasn't enough in the end, and he had to once again fight his once friend just to allow his crew to land on the island and continue forward. The Rox pirates arrived and stopped the killing of the natives on the island, but quickly had other groups to contend with, such as the Roger pirates, Garp, and the Holy Knights. Rox wasted no time looking for his wife Eris and his son Blackbeard. He found them again without much trouble, but he had to face Scarling in the process, as well as another knight. When he watched the knights transform his father and grandmother into demons, he had no choice but to escape with his family to avoid the same fate for them. Understanding the severity of the situation, his wife Eris told Rox to let them escape on their own, while he dealt with the threats, and they'd meet up at Lelusia Kingdom when it was safe. Rox fought Garling and defeated him, but then had to face an Emu-possessed Saturn next. Rox reiterated to Emu his plans to keep the Davy promise alive and to fulfill it. Meanwhile, seeing the harm being caused, Rox wasn't alone in this battle, as Garp, Roger, Linlin, Newgate, and Kaido all joined in against Emu's Saturn puppet. With a lineup that insane, you'd think it'd be impossible for them to not overcome the man. But they failed to even injure Emu. As Emu spotted the family fleeing, Rox jumped in front to keep the ruler busy and focused on him. He cut and sliced up Emu, but ended up the one injured and stabbed when Emu created extra limbs to use against Rox. Emu planned to use Dami Reversi on Rox to make him a demon that he could control. Whether because of his bloodline or his strong love for his own family, Rox was able to resist the control temporarily and use that moment to taunt Emu and to double down on the ideals of the Davy family. In a similar way, Emu angered Rox by intending to take control of the giants of Elbaf and use them as weapons for the government. The demon transformation took over Rox and forced him to attack his allies, even destroying a mountain when he fought Newgate. Against his will, he chased after his wife and son, but thankfully Kuma sent them elsewhere after consuming the pawpaw fruit, sparing them any attacks from Rox or the Marines. Emu wrongly assumed they died, and ordered Rox to kill everyone left on the island next. When Roger and Garp joined together to face Rox, he told them telepathically, possibly through the voice of all things, to kill him so that he couldn't harm anyone else, especially his family who escaped. They agreed to the request, guessing that the control was irreversible. After hours of clashing, little damage was done on Rox's body due to the Dami Reversi demon magic and the Conqueror's Haki combo. But not wanting him to go through this, the duo combined their strength and Conqueror's Haki to finally overcome Rox's power using what they call mass. After their combined blow, Rox regained control of himself, but couldn't escape his fate as Garling, Summers, and Satchel came for him next. Knowing this, Rox thanked Roger and Garp for their help and hoped that they had made it away safely as he was stabbed by Garling and ultimately killed. Following this, the entirety of the island was destroyed and sunken underwater, erased from the history books. Many Marines would never forget that day, namely Dragon, who went on to fight against the world government, and Garp, who saw the horrors of what the higher-ups would do for the world nobles, helped his son get away from any charges for saving the natives. But Sengoku also passed on his knowledge of Rox to the younger generations of soldiers to keep the history alive, without sharing too many details of what had happened that day on God Valley. Unsurprisingly, Rox's crew separated afterwards, barely seeing each other as allies without Rox himself, never bothering to share what they saw or experienced that day his life ended. But more importantly, despite ending their friendship in a bad way, Harold felt deeply saddened to hear what became of Rox, and guilty about not being there when he needed help. Rox had revealed his heritage to try and press just how important it was, and Harold still shot him down back then. When Harold ended up the way that Rox warned, Harold knew that he made a grave mistake not believing in his friend's words. That may have been the end of Rox, but Blackbeard to this day continues to carry on his will, which is also, in a way, the will of Davy Jones. And that was the entire story of Rox D. Zebek, aka Davy D. Zebek, who, in my opinion, is probably the best character in the series of One Piece.
So we're seeing Loki's devil fruit in action in this chapter, and it's like the strongest devil fruit ever. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, but I guess it's in contention for that for sure, because he is now like the biggest living thing in the world, rivaling Zunisha, and he has like these crazy lightning powers that could, you know, probably just destroy an island very easily. I don't mean like island level the way that hardcore power scalers say. I'm just saying like, you know, an island in One Piece, because everything is an island. But it's explained by Jarl in a flashback like what exactly Loki's devil fruit is, or almost exactly, because when he's talking to Shanks and Scopper back a couple years ago after Loki had killed Harold, he says that it's the mythical dragon, and that's as far as it goes. But then also in the chapter, one of the giants commenting on Loki's appearance says, it's like a real-life Needhog. And then at the end of the chapter, when Ibu's observing it, they say, so it's here, the Needhog. So I guess, you know, that's confirming that this is like the mythical dragon modeled Needhog devil fruit. Anyway, going further, Jarl says whoever eats it can transform into the world's most colossal dragon, and the size is relative to the user. So like if a human ate it, it would become big, but if a giant ate it, it would become bigger, and then if a ancient giant ate it, it would bring out the full potential of the fruit. And of course, Loki is an ancient giant. And also it says that it's a dragon that breathes lightning. Its jet black body can turn day into night. So yeah, like I said, easily one of the strongest devil fruits ever. You could say that it might be the strongest, depending on how far it goes. We've only really seen it in action in this chapter, but it's already probably top 5, I'm assuming, especially in the hands of Loki. And another thing that I'm sure a lot of people are speculating about, is this the dragon that we saw on the mural of the Adam Tree, like the time before the Void Century? We see that dragon fighting against what's implied to be the Hellfire Serpent. And to be honest, I don't really know, because as it says, it's a dragon that breathes lightning, and we see that this dragon in the mural breathes fire. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's fire. Also, the horns are facing in the opposite direction that Loki's horns are. Now, granted, Loki's horns are coming from him being an ancient giant. And when Jarl is explaining the devil fruit, and we see like this visualization, I guess what this devil fruit is, or what just the Needhog is, the horns are facing the way that the dragon's horns are facing on the mural. So again, I don't know. And me personally, I would like it if it's not the dragon on the mural, because the dragon on the mural seems like like it should be something outside of devil fruits. And I always kind of thought that this is the source of Emu's power. Now again, I could be wrong, just speculating, but like I said, given that it's breathing fire and that it just seems more grandiose than to just be boiled down to a devil fruit that somebody like Loki is going to have, I just think that these things are two separate entities. Again, could be wrong. But in the case that this is what Loki's devil fruit is, this means that the Hellfire Serpent likely has manifested into a devil fruit as well, and it makes you wonder who could have that. But going further into Jarl explaining this in the flashback, he says that it's a forbidden devil fruit because it was protected by Ragnir, which, you know, we saw Loki had to essentially tame him in order to eat the fruit. And then he says, in Elbaf, there's a legend about a god of war who fought with Ragnir, and it is said that he took the form of a giant dragon and he locked horns with the sun god. He was accompanied by a loyal partner, the ice squirrel Ratatoskr. So this is awesome, and surprisingly, we actually see it. I cannot believe that Oda did not silhouette this character. Now, him saying that this is a legend, I guess that doesn't automatically mean that this literally did happen, but given how One Piece works, this probably did happen. Now, considering that we're actually also seeing the sun god Nika here, or at least one of the Nikas, this also makes me think that, like, I guess there was two Nikas back in the day. Maybe there was one that was like the god of destruction Nika, and then there was like the god of liberation Nika, because when Nika is first mentioned by Who's Who, he looks more Shandorian like, and this one looks more Elbafian like. So maybe there were two Nikas, which I guess is supposed to go into the whole thing about how there's like two sides of the D's. You know, Luffy, Blackbeard, Rocks, Roger, Joy Boy, Davy Jones, and I guess it goes all the way back to Nika as well. There's like two Nikas, liberation, destruction. I'm just guessing, okay? I could be wrong about that. We hardly know anything about this stuff. But I guess this also means that this God of War guy is not the Loki guy that we saw on the Elbaf mural. Because also in the mural, he doesn't have Ragnir. He has like a spear, kind of, which I should have pointed out earlier. Which I guess could mean that this fight that he's talking about took place before the Void Century, because also if this is truly a variant of Nika, then I guess this predates Devil Fruits. And I really hope we get to see the time before Devil Fruits, like the time on the right side of the mural, because that time is also fascinating as well, because this was apparently the time where there was actually gods roaming the earth. Because, you know, God of War, Sun God, there was an Earth God, which might be that dragon, there was the Hellfire Serpent, which was probably the god of something, there was like the Forest God. There was like these primordial powerful entities. Man, like I said, I really hope we get to see that stuff, because that's like really interesting to me. I love deep lore in series like this. Now, following this statement, Jarl says, after the God of War had died, they say that his loyal Ratatoskr came to possess the weapon Ragnir and awaits his master's return, or so the legend goes. So we also see Ratatoskr, or at least the original Ratatoskr, with the God of War in this panel. And given how devil fruits work and how Nika became a devil fruit, I think this means that Ratatoskr became a devil fruit as well, and then Ragnir ate that devil fruit and then became Ratatoskr. And if that's not the case, then there's like some kind of soul Cloud Buterman stuff going on. I don't know. It just seems likely that this is devil fruit related. And if that is the case, then I guess Ratatoskr, you know, in the pre-Void Century time, pre-devil fruit time, was just some kind of like powerful creature that had ice powers. Because beings just had powers without devil fruits back in the day, or at least it seems that way. But like I said, we're just speculating here. There's no way to know for sure what the true answer is yet. But this is all fun stuff. Let me know in the comments what you think about what's going on here, because I'm sure you guys know the answer for sure. But before we get into the end of this, another cool thing that happens in this chapter is Luffy saves the kids and the other giants from Summers by straight up grabbing lightning that, you know, is emanating from Loki's devil fruit, and he just levels Summers with a booming Dawn Thor rifle. So, you know, hitting him with the lightning in a giant fist. Awesome sequence, and he like breaks Summers apart. But Summers is seemingly fine after this, because while his head is like blown off, he's still talking, like saying that Nika is just a tale that you tell to scare kids. And Ripley is like mentioning how Luffy looks like Nika. And of course it's because he has like the deep sea covenant or whatever level of covenant that he has from Emu that gives him these regeneration powers, but also like makes him more vulnerable to breaking apart. But then coming into the end of the chapter, like I said, we see the crazy power of Loki's devil fruit, which is like island busting level because he fires like this lightning blast at the sleep tid monsters and it's just like a nuke going off. And Emu, while in Gunko, like observes this, and then we see that Emu is also like parallel reacting to this in their true form back in Mary Joie. And they say, the Needhog, it was here all along. And you know, we talked about this before, but it's just funny that like Emu didn't know that it was here the whole time, considering that the fruit seemingly originated here, because you know it's tied to the god of war who could transform into this thing, which also like muddies the water if this was like a time pre-devil fruit where the god of war could just transform into a dragon just because he was born that way or something. I don't know, but I guess this is also planting the seeds that Emu is super interested in this devil fruit and either going to try to kill Loki to get the devil fruit or just Dami reversing him so that he is subservient to Emu and can use this to their bidding, which, you know, we've talked about for many chapters now. We're going to keep talking about it until it happens. Loki's probably going to get Dami reversed here and Luffy's going to have to fight him. So it's a new year, and we just got out of the flashback in Elbaf, so we're back in the current time in the story, which begs the question of, like, who are the strongest characters in One Piece now? We talked about this before, but we're going to talk about it again because things have changed. So I'm not going to get, you know, with the established stuff immediately. Let's just go into a wild card. Do you think the man marked by flames is, like, one of the strongest characters right now? Whoever it is. You know, we talked it could be Harold, it could be somebody else, but regardless, is he just the man marked by flames and he has a whirlpool devil fruit allegedly and he's holding the last road poneglyph and that's the significance of him? Or is he like one of the strongest people right now?
Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna take a guess. We know nothing about this guy. I'm gonna take a guess and say they're not super strong. I don't think they're weak. I think they're like below Yonko level. So I don't think they're gonna go down as like the strongest in history.
Yeah, probably not. Unless it's Harold. If it is Harold, then he's definitely one of the strongest characters right now. But I'm just not sure if it is Harold, especially because we saw that he was kind of dead. Or at least it looked like he was dead. He was just laying there with the feathered cape laying over him. But yeah, I just wanted to put it out there to make it more interesting in the beginning. But you say Yonko level. That's like the gold standard right now. It's like if you're Yonko level or not, that's it. Like, you're not going to make the cut. Here are the strongest characters that I think are right now in the series. So, Loki, Emu, Garling, Blackbeard, Akainu, Luffy, Shanks, Mihawk, and Dragon. I think those are like it. Those are the clear-cut top guys. There's really no one above them, and then everyone else in the series is below them.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a really definitive list. The only character you might be able to argue into the list would be Shamrock. If they really are, like, you know, Shanks' opposite, you know, the twin of Shanks, the son of Garling, then yeah, I could see him being up here. And it's funny because you put Loki as, like, you know, the first character you listed. It does draw me back to that line where Shamrock was like, hey, Loki, even if you were unchained, you know, the result would be the same. It's like, whoa, okay, that's crazy gas, right? Especially given how strong Loki is. Like, could Shamrock actually beat Loki unchained? Or was he just talking mess? I don't know. You know, like, the Figarlands, they're funny, right? The dad, a little bit silly. But when it comes to Shanks, like, he doesn't really lie. And Shamrock, he seems to maybe be more like Shanks than anything. Just like an evil version. So, I don't know. Maybe he is that confident in his abilities. But, I mean, outside of that, though, that's like semantics. I think this is a really good list. There's nobody you could really argue that should be on here that isn't. Like you said, if Man Marked by Flames is like this almighty guy, which I would like, he could be on here, but I don't know, man. The Whirlpool ability, like, is that even a devil fruit? Like, that could just be a product of Fishman, right? Because Fishman can easily make whirlpools.
Yeah, you raise a good point. I was hesitant of putting Shamrock on here because I didn't want to make the list too long. But I guess Shamrock would be the last element here. And I only say that because, like, Yeah, he does have a pretty beastly fruit and in a sword, which is a great dynamic. And he did wreck Loki. I mean, Loki was chained up. It is what it is. And then he did say the thing about he would beat him. I mean, he's going to say that regardless. You know, like Garling was pretty confident going against Rocks, and he got annihilated back in the day. That's why I'm even hesitant to put Garling on here. Garling got beat down so bad by Rocks at God Valley that it's like, is he that much stronger now? I mean, I guess he has to be. He has to be stronger. We've talked about Garling before, like current day Gorosei Garling. So he has like the tier 3, like it's seemingly the strongest covenant that Imu can give you. So he's definitely has that buff going on to him, and he's older. Characters get stronger when they're older in this series. And he just has to be strong because he's like the last line of defense for Imu at this point besides the Gorosei. And I didn't put the Gorosei on here because it doesn't seem like they're any stronger than the rest of these characters on the list that I put, or at least they're equivalent to it. So I just put like Garling representing them because we talked about that before. He seems like he's probably the strongest one besides, I don't know, Venus and Mercury maybe. But and then I say that, you know, also because we haven't even seen Dragon fight. We haven't seen Dragon do anything.
That is true. We're just putting him here for, you know, the Luffy tax, essentially.
Yeah, I'm just giving him too much respect, maybe. I mean, I'm just saying he has to be up there. He has to be, like, a Yonko level, as we're saying. Like, he has to be there, or else it just doesn't make sense. Like, if he's weaker than that, that would be so anticlimactic. Like, once he finally actually does something.
I hope he's up here, man. Like, I could also see a reality where he's not that strong, but I just feel like that'd be disappointing, right? Because, I mean, look at the people he's surrounded by. He's not exactly surrounded by, you know, Zoros and Sanjis and Lokis and, you know, all these tough subordinates. I mean, dude, he's walking around with this egg person. He's got a cow man, a girl with a robot arm. Like, they don't look impressive, right? We haven't seen them fight, sure. You know, the revolutionaries are built up to just be one of the people, right? So if you're telling me like, oh, they have power in numbers, you know, Dragon, or he's not strong because he's powerful, he's strong because he has everybody behind him. It's like, okay, that fits thematically with the revs, but it's not cool, you know what I mean? Like, and then typically in anime, MC dads, they're always like super broken. So I hope Dragon is that guy. But you're right, like we're just kind of putting him up here like really quickly.
I mean, I've seen other YouTubers for years list him as like one of the top 3 strongest, if not the strongest, like established YouTubers. And I was always like, I mean, yeah, I mean, he could be, but now that we're at this point in the story, I just don't think he is like the strongest. I don't even think he's like top 5, to be honest. I mean, he's probably up there to be able to fight against the Kaidos and guys like that. But I don't think he's like strong enough to like defeat somebody like Luffy. Because I think Luffy is like one of the absolute strongest characters in the series right now. Yes, he like wasn't like beasting the Gorosei, but he was doing enough. And as soon as he figures out like the trick to overcoming the Covenant powers, I think he can just be, I think he can just beast the Gorosei right now. Like, he doesn't even need to like do quote unquote training. Like, Scopper is just like, hey, Luffy, all you gotta do is just this instead of what you've been doing. It's like, oh, that's all? Boom, okay. And then I think that would be enough. Like, he's already as strong as he needs to be to take down essentially everyone, I think, aside from Imu. But Imu's gonna need some trick to taking them down anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, even at Egghead, right? Yeah, Luffy didn't beat the Gorosei, but the whole mission wasn't to beat them anyways. Like, there was essentially a timer on that fight, and the timer ran out. Luffy couldn't beat him because they were regenerating, and that is what it is. But if we stayed there, if Luffy genuinely stayed there and had to fight the Gorosei and beat them, I think he could. Maybe not like every single one like at once, right? Like 5v1, no way. But yeah, it feels like 1v1, 1v2, 1v3 even. Luffy would figure it out eventually through trial and error. That's just always how it is. He's gonna keep on going and going and going until it's like Roger and Garp where they're like, hey, mass attack time. Like, let's just, you know, like the major plot convenience. Hey, Garp, mass. Let's do it.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting. Cool. Yeah, exactly. And then for, you know, Blackbeard,
he's an unknown still. We always talk about it off screen. He wins usually, so we don't really see him definitively win a fight. But he has 2 devil fruits. He probably has Conqueror's Haki. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but it would be weird if he doesn't have it. Also, all of these characters need to have Conqueror's Haki going forward, because that seems to be like the prerequisite to be able to defeat the strongest villains in the series now. Like, if you don't have it, you can't do anything against them. Like, that overcomes the Covenant power. So I'm thinking everybody here needs to have that to some extent. Shanks has it, so Garling has to have it. Loki confirmed to have it. And then I'm sure Dragon has it because Luffy.
I mean, to be fair, the previous Fleet Admiral Sengoku, he has Conqueror's Haki, so Akainu having it, I don't think is crazy.
Yeah, Sengoku having it is wild. So if he has it and like Akainu doesn't, that would be weak. Mihawk is Mihawk. He's gonna keep, like, as the power scale rises, so will he. It will always be like congruent. Like, his power will keep matching as strong as the series comes, because he's the strongest swordsman in the world. He's going to be Zoro's final opponent probably. He's Shanks' rival. He's always going to be up there. And also, the Cross Guild is relying on him. Like, he is the Cross Guild. So
he's their main force.
Exactly. He is the Yonko of the Cross Guild. So he is why they're a Yonko. We've already talked about this before. If he really wanted to be the leader or the Yonko instead of Buggy, he could easily just take that title. But he doesn't really care about it. He also has a freaking Yonko bounty. So Mihawk is Mihawk. Emu is Emu. We don't really need to talk about Emu. It's the strongest. It has whatever kind of devil powers that they have. And Loki, we already made a video about Loki like 2 weeks ago. 2 devil fruits, the legendary devil fruit of Elbaf, the devil fruit in Ragnir, Conqueror's Haki, like we said, unbelievable. I didn't have Loki on the list before, but now I do, now that we know more about him. And he's a freaking Agent Giant. He's incredibly big. And then I guess Shanks. Shanks is, aside from Emu, the strongest character in the series, I think, still to this day. So incredibly powerful, especially because they defeated Loki. Somehow, with one arm, defeated Loki, just using Conqueror's Haki, I guess. I mean, we don't really know much else about Shanks. Maybe they have a devil fruit in their sword. That remains to be seen. But just, man, Shanks, the strongest character. And I don't really see anyone on this list besides Emu defeating them. We haven't really seen anyone show anything that means that they can defeat them. Like, Shanks has the best feats of current day characters, I think. Like, one-shotting Kid like that, coming off of beating Big Mom and Wano.
I feel so bad for Kid. It feels like he lost to the plot, you know? He lost to hype Shanks up. That really is what it feels like, but it's fine. It's a worthy sacrifice, I guess. But when it comes to Shanks, like, you're right. I can't really see him losing to a lot of people. The only person I could see Shanks really, like, bending the knee to is maybe his brother. But it depends, like, how strong Oda wants to make him. Because, I mean, that seems like an Oda thing or, like, a One Piece thing, right? Oh, twin versus twin. Ah, man, they're evenly matched. And then Shanks doesn't want to kill him. Shamrock doesn't want to kill him. And it's, like, this weird battle.
And maybe that's why Shamrock exists, so that Shanks has someone to fight. Because otherwise he would just steamroll all of the big major players in the series. So he has to fight against somebody allegedly equivalent in his power that can just stalemate him like Shamrock. All right, we're going to be talking about the strongest characters in the history of One Piece. Not like the current day characters, but like all throughout the thousands of years of history of One Piece. There has been some incredible powerhouses. In fact, they're very likely to be stronger than the characters currently in the series right now. So, Joy Boy, Davy Jones, Emu. Those are like the big trifecta from the Void Century. Then from the First World, we have the alleged trifecta from that time. Sun God Nika, the Hellfire Serpent, and the big mysterious Black Dragon. And then from the God Valley time, we have Rox, Garp, Roger, and Whitebeard. I guess we can go to the Void Century trio first. So when we first talked about this last year, the strongest characters in history, we didn't know about Davy Jones. We knew about Joy Boy and Emu. But now we know that Davy Jones was a part of that. These guys, you know, were like the Luffy, Blackbeard, and Emu of their time. And we saw that Joy Boy,
is the strongest character ever next to Emu. Like, when he unleashed his Conquer Hockey from that knot, it was the strongest thing we've ever seen actually happen in the series, as far as I know. I'm pretty sure there's never been anything stronger than that. So, does that mean that Davy Jones is very likely just as strong as that?
I feel like he's gonna be. Like, that's just how it is, right? I think the parallels are gonna run close. I think just kind of like how Luffy and Blackbeard are kind of like in tandem. Like, they just keep on getting stronger and stronger. I think Joy Boy and Davy Jones are the same way. Like, in the past, you know, Joy Boy was up there, Davy Jones was up there. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the long and the short of it. They are stronger than the current day characters, I think, at least right now. I mean, you know, by the end of the series, Luffy and them will all arise or surpass Joy Boy and Davy Jones. But for now, they are the strongest characters that at least we've seen of. And then Emu, it really remains to be seen if Emu was like born a powerhouse or even trained to become strong, the way that it's implied that Joy Boy and Davy Jones did. Or they just received the power that made them that strong, which could be some kind of devil or some kind of dragon or something like that. There's just so many unknowns about Emu. We just are barely seeing what they're capable of now in Elbaf, with like using this book, this spell book, this evil book, or whatever it is, and they can like summon like these magical seals things, and then they've been using like guns a lot, like guns. Like, I was actually rereading these couple chapters for our collab, and the first thing that Emu does is like pull these like 2 barrels out of like the sigil and then like fires at some of the giants with it, and then after that she pulls out like that shotgun thing and then blows Broggy's hand off.
That's kind of funny, huh? Like, somebody from the Void Century, what's their first weapon? Well, it's a double barrel shotgun. Like, I wonder why. Like, what's up with that? I like that mindset, though. Just like, how strong were they during the Void Century? Were they always like up there? Is it something they only got recently? I'd like to imagine that they were weak in the beginning and they just got stronger. I don't know why. That's just like my own headcanon, but
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of like a Orochi, maybe. A Orochi from Wano. Orochi's like a weakling. He just has a really powerful, you know, devil fruit. I think that's probably what's going on with Emu. Like, Emu's probably not a fighter. They're probably just super powerful just from magic. And that's it. Like, in a one-on-one fight, they're probably going to lose. Like, if they were to just, like, fist fight or whatever, it's not going to be like, you know...
Yeah, not like fisticuffs. They're not like using taijutsu.
No, that's just the vibe that I get from Emu. They're just powerful magic, and that's it. Which I think would be fitting. Like, we don't need to have the final villain be like, you know, super skilled. I wouldn't mind it if they're just powerful because they just got the most broken magic, and that's it.
I wouldn't mind a little bit of both. Just because if it is like the final fight, I would love to see Emu just throw like mad hands. You know what I mean? Like, I think that would be kind of cool. Like, just our own little modder at home. Yeah, Emu's just crazy. I gotta see what that Joy Boy fight was like though, because I don't think it was a 1v1 back in the day. I do think it might have been like a 1v20, because we know that Emu had like the 20 kings by their side. So it's like, yeah, like, how much did those 20 kings actually help out? I wonder.
Yeah, I think what we see on the mural is like what that fight was. Because, most people, I think, that are most hardcores think that is Emu, the big devil thing holding the sun, or whatever, the power source of the ancient kingdom. That's probably what the fight was. Emu versus everyone. And then we do see that there's some allies down there, which are probably the Gorosei or whatever, or the other celestial dragons before they were celestial dragons. But yeah, that's probably what it was. Just Emu beasting everyone with just their crazy devil power that they have, because they won in the end. I mean, there was probably some trickery. Going off of how Oda tells all of these stories, especially in flashbacks, there's like trickery done. Like, something happens and then the main character gets tricked or falls to some scheme, or something underhanded happens and they lose, which I'm assuming happens to Joy Boy. wow, he's so powerful that it doesn't even seem like
Yeah.
Emu could stop him. He could just brute force conquer Saki through even just magic. So other than that, we have the other side of the mural on the Atom Tree, and it's what the first world was with the Hellfire Serpent going against the dragon. So we don't really know much about this, but it does seem like these were like the two strongest things in existence at that point. Like the Hellfire Serpent, which maybe was native to Earth, and then whatever that dragon was, which seems like it could be the source of Emu's power. Maybe it is the celestial dragon, don't really know. But we have those two, which are probably, like I said, the strongest things in existence at that point. And then maybe Sun God Nika was in the mix there. Although we don't see Sun God Nika himself on that mural with those things. Maybe he did exist during that time. Just to put it out there, if they did exist, which it seems like they did, they were the strongest of their time and maybe the strongest in history, like even surpassing Emu and Davy Jones and Joy Boy and all of them, because those are like the primordial powers of the One Piece world. Or again, we're just really speculating here, but do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw you put the Hellfire Serpent, the dragon, now it's atop the tree. I think there's one more we should add in, and that would mainly just be the Earth God. Because the Hellfire Serpent worked for the Earth God, so I'd say throw him up there. I mean, hell, throw in all the gods, right? Like, if Sun God Nika is a great example of how strong one of these gods are, the other gods, yeah, dude, bring in the primordial beings, whatever they look like. I think they're absolutely crazy. And funny enough, I don't know where we'd fit him in. Because, I'm looking at the list right now. I'm like, okay, you separated it via, generation, which I think is great. But there's one character that kind of breaks all of this. And that's kind of just Ryuma. Like, I feel like whenever there's like a strongest in history list, Ryuma somehow sneaks in there every now and then. And I get it. It's like one of Oda's like OG stories. It's like, yeah, he's probably just gonna get upskilled to hell and back. It's like the Mihawk of his day, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's tough because like all these guys are just gods among men. So it's like, would Ryuma really be on this list? Not too sure, but yeah, going back to the 3,000 years ago list, Sun God Nika, Hellfire Serpent, Earth God, I'm down with it. I mean, like you said, they got like the biggest depictions in the mural, so they can't be nothing. They can't be nothing.
Yeah, I just wish there was more to go off of it. I hope Oda eventually explores that. I mean, obviously he's going to explore the Void Century in a flashback, but hopefully we get that too. I mean, he showed us on the mural, so I guess he has to show that to some extent. He wouldn't just show that and never mention it. It is integral to the origin of the whole One Piece story, after all. I guess we can go to God Valley at this point, because that just happened. And we weren't able to talk about that before because it didn't happen yet. So we have easy clear-cut top 4 from that time. Rocks, Garp, Roger, and Whitebeard. Like everyone else, Garling, Big Mom Kaido, even Saturn, I think, not really on their level. Especially Rocks, who seem to be the strongest amongst these. I mean, you could say Garp maybe was up there with him. I mean, up there with him, but I don't know who definitively was stronger because, it ultimately came down to Garp and Roger having to team up to take on a Dami Reversied Rocks, which is a buffed Rocks, essentially, although not in the same headspace. But regardless, I do think Rocks was number 1 at that time, even above Garp. I think if they were to fight, he probably would have won high diff. But yeah, these are the 4 strongest, and I put Whitebeard there too because we saw Whitebeard like clash by himself with Dami Reversied Rocks, and he kind of stood there and held his own.
Yeah, no, I agree. Garp, Roger, Rocks, they were the era. I think the narrator literally said that, like, when we entered the flashback, too. Like, hey, before everybody else, that's around today, it was these guys. It was Rocks' era, then it was Roger, and, Garp was there right beside him. There's one character I kind of wish was on this list, too, and it was another faction leader of God Valley. That was Garling. I still feel so catfished by how Oda did that. It's like, oh, here's God Valley, reintroduced it twice. Here's all the factions. Garling's the leader of this one, and then he's just like a fart to the wind. But yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna argue with that. Rocks, Roger, Garp, they are the guys. Crazy though, Emu upscale to the moon, but just the fact that Emu looked at Rocks, hit him with a couple of tentacles, and then just Rocks went down. It's insane, man.
I mean, yeah, he was still taking it, though. He was laughing. He was saying this didn't even hurt. But also that further shows how incredibly powerful Emu was. You know, just possessing Saturn took all of the strongest characters at that time, besides Garling's named attacks, and it didn't phase them at all. Like, they didn't go, ugh. As far as I know, there was no sound effect or dialogue going like, implying pain or anything. It was just, blah, 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 and then they just come back together. And it's like, okay, so then
didn't even hurt them.
I guess they're just God. Literally. I mean, that's what they want to be. They're just God. There's nothing that you can do to stop them. Because unless they didn't have mass in their attacks, which I guess they didn't because they didn't emphasize it. But
yeah, I mean, I guess now we know how to hurt Emu. Just, like, kill the God Knights, but... I mean, which shouldn't be, like, super insane if you have a bunch of Conqueror's Honky users. Like, if Rox knew that was the way to beat Emu, I think they might have been able to, not win, but I think they'd do a lot better.
If they went around killing all of the God Knights, then yes, maybe it would have affected Emu, or at least made them vulnerable, or to some extent, because, you know, we saw in the latest chapter that Harold dying seemed to have affected Emu, and said that it, you know, every covenant they make comes at a price to them, to Emu. So, yeah, that seems to be the key.
Yeah, just get all the Rox pirates, all the Roger pirates. Guys, we're killing God Knights. that is the way to beat this thing. That would have been crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what's going to happen current day.
So the SBS for the new volume 1114 just came out, and with it we got confirmation on a bunch of stuff. Some stuff that's actually pretty important. First of all, we're finding out who was speaking to the Gorosei in the Reverie in chapter 907, because Oda was asked, I've been wondering for a long time, was that hooded figure talking to the five elders during the Reverie about a certain pirate actually Shanks, or was it Shamrock? Also, does mermaid poop come out from the front or the back? And Oda said, the back. And yes, it was Shamrock. In the anime, it was actually voiced by Shanks' voice actor, Shuichi Ikeda. I realized, I forgot to tell the anime staff that it's not Shanks. So there you go. Confirmation that was Shamrock. Shanks beat the snitch allegations. So, yeah, Shanks is pretty much a good guy. I mean, I'm sure there's some morally grayness to him still, but he's more or less, like, pretty much, like, through and through a good guy. Shamrock, of course, not so much. But as for the certain pirate that Shamrock was mentioning, well, that's still up for debate, which is pretty fun. Let me know in the comments who you think he was talking about. Could be Shanks, could be Blackbeard, could be Luffy. We'll see. Oh, while we're on Shanks and Shamrock, the name of their mother is revealed, and it was Magnolia. I don't know why Oda just couldn't reveal that in the chapter itself, but alright. Oda was also asked, the Kozuki Moria seen in chapter 1158's cover page, is it actually Gecko Moria? Oda says that's right. I actually wanted to reveal this during the Wano Country arc, but I couldn't find the right opening to fit it in. Based on the information I've given you all so far, Moria was described like this. He once fought with Kaido. After his entire crew was killed, he developed a personality that relies on others. He possessed the corpse of the legendary samurai Ryuma and the famous sword Sushui. From those points, you might have imagined that he had been to Wano before, but what I really wanted to share is the reason for his fight against Kaido. When Moria was a young boy, he drifted ashore in Wano. The people of Ringo region took him in warmly, because they cherished him and gave him the name Kozuki, in honor of his strength. Moria, who had already set out to sea as a pirate, returned to fight Kaido in an attempt to save the people of Wano from his attack. However, he was defeated. After his loss, Moria felt so ashamed that he left Wano without saying a word. The people assumed he had died and built a grave for him. Since I cut this from the main story, it's just a need-to-know bit of trivia. So that's pretty cool and also kind of sad. So first of all, Oda says that he didn't have time to include this in Wano. That's wild because Wano is like the longest arc, and of course there was tons of stuff in there that didn't need to be there. You could have just easily fit this in there, right? But who am I to say? I'm not the one crafting One Piece. Anyway, we were speculating a lot when this was revealed on the cover of 1158, but now it turns out that Moria is not like a Kozuki by blood, he's just a Kozuki by name. I don't even know if it was the Kozuki clan that named him.
maybe it was just these people in Ringo that named it. But I guess this means that Moria can't read the poneglyphs unless they did teach him. But considering that Oda says, since I cut this from the main story, it's just a need to know bit of trivia, kind of like Schrodinger's translator, I guess. Maybe he can read the poneglyphs, maybe he can. If he can read the poneglyphs, that would certainly help the Cross Guild, which we assume that he's going to join, because they currently don't have a poneglyph reader. And that would be a really cool reveal if he can read the poneglyphs, like they just taught him because he is a Kozuki. Because, you know, if it was the Kozukis that named him and raised him, then maybe they would teach him, but maybe not. I don't know. But I love the fact here that Moria like willingly returned to Wano to try to save them from Kaido, while Odin just twerked and did nothing. But this is a huge upscale for Moria, and it kind of shows that he wasn't always like a terrible person, I guess. And I think when he returns, like fully returns, he will have like a face turn, or more face than heel, if he does join the Cross Guild. Because the Cross Guild right now are kind of like in-betweeners, you know, they're not necessarily heels, not necessarily faces. So I think he would fit in right there with them. And going further, Oda does confirm here that back in the God Valley flashback, Captain John did have Kid's Devil Fruit originally, along with Gonzoi having Mr. Five's Bomb Devil Fruit, and Gil Bastar having Perona's Devil Fruit. The two formers are pretty obvious because they have like straight up fight scenes during that arc. Gil Bastar, he was more of like an Easter egg kind of. You really had to pay attention to the panels to see it, but nice to get some confirmation. And like I said before, we're going to see more of this once we get into the Void Century, because we're going to see like the original users of all of the Devil Fruits, or at least the prominent ones, I guess, and that's gonna be fun. And also, while we're still on Rox here, he's confirming that Rox himself, his sword's name is Eclipse, and his ship's name is Rox's Fury. So that's cool, I guess. The sword name Eclipse, of course, goes more along with the theme of Sun and Moon stuff, which is like one of the biggest themes of One Piece, so there you go. Oda's also asked about Roger's Jolly Roger, because he's asked that the ship has this mark, the mustache skull, but Roger himself hasn't grown a mustache yet. Why is that? And Oda says, that's right, those are udon noodles, you see? That's udon. Yeah, I got questions about this one. I got it a lot. You're right. I think 99% of readers didn't care, but now 100% of you won't be able to unsee it. What should I do for the overseas fans? Is long macaroni okay? So, yeah, I like this, because it shows that Oda isn't freaking perfect. So many of you, I'm not necessarily saying the people watching this video, but like, I guess like, you know, all of like the real try-hard grandstandy types on Reddit, Twitter, and then other like ultra Oda sycophant YouTubers like think that he's perfect and infallible and everything he does is for a reason. And he's clearly shown time and time again in these SBSs that no, that's not the case. And I really like that he says, I think 99% of the readers wouldn't care, because that's true, or at least close to 99%. The hardcore fandom, which I guess this is, if you're watching this video, you're not necessarily a hardcore, but you're on the verge of it. That's a small part of the fandom, you know, maybe 10% at most, I'm guessing. You know, in light of me even saying that, if you look at it in the anime, it does look like it's noodles. So maybe Oda is perfect. Maybe he did craft this in a fourth dimensional way that my puny 8 brain can't comprehend. I also like to go over the nonsense questions that Oda gets in these Q&As, because it also shows that he just straight up answers nonsense in these things. And I get it, trying to have some fun, I suppose, but I'm sure he's also getting so many other better questions than these. Not necessarily even questions that would straight up spoil the series if he answered them, because I know he can't answer those. But like, for example, somebody asked, I want to be Gunko's slave, and Oda said, go right ahead. And then another one here. Hello, Oda. For people in One Piece who dress like this, referring to the high-cut outfits in the image. One image is Nami's Elbaf skirt outfit. One image is the Kuja skirt outfit. Are they not wearing any underwear? And Oda says, of course they aren't. I mean, how would they even wear anything under that? Can you please stop ruining our dreams? So yeah, getting into the real important stuff of One Piece here, guys. But I appreciate that he at least gave a straight up answer to this, because in One Punch Man, One and Murata were always asked, like, is Tatsumaki wearing underwear? And they never really like gave a clear answer, which I think is fun. But here you go, guys, the serious stuff that we needed to know. And then I guess the last thing we could talk about here is him talking about Shiki. So he says that Shiki's swords are skillful grade. There's like 50 of those swords in existence or whatever. And that that he is currently 73 years old, which is really interesting because that could imply that Shiki is still alive. Now, it's possible that Oda didn't even realize what he actually says here when he's saying like currently. Maybe he's just saying that he would be 73 years old, but will Shiki come back in the main story? Possibly, maybe in like one panel in the very last final war saga or whatever. So the man with the burn scar, there's a lot of theories about who that could be, but recently there's been a lot of buzz about it possibly being Harold, King of Elbaf, Loki's father. And I know that he died in chapter 1170, which is the chapter most current as of this recording, but there's some compelling evidence to the man with the burn scar being him. Now, the man with the burn scar is significant because he was mentioned a few times. I think at the end of Wano he was first mentioned maybe, but it said that he has the last road poneglyph. So the Straw Hat Pirates have like 3 of them right now. There's a few other characters that have the information on them as well, but you need 4 of them to find the location of Laugh Tale, where the One Piece itself is. So getting that last road poneglyph is crucial in ending the series, essentially, because that's where we are. We're in the last part of the series at this point. So this man with the burn scar has the last piece to find the One Piece itself. And we've been speculating like who it was, and if it is Harold, that means that he is, as it was said, on like a black ship somewhere just cruising out there, and on that black ship I guess he has like the road poneglyph itself. Now that's not foolproof. I'm not like outright saying that it is definitively Harold, but I'm saying that there is like a good possibility that it is him, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was him actually, because I think it will be revealed in this arc probably. So before we even get into like the details of why it is him, let me just say that whenever we go into these arcs, especially post time skip, but I guess this also happens pre time skip as well, there's always like a king element of the places that the Straw Hats visit. And the king is thrown out of power to some extent or presumed dead. That happens so much. And then it turns out that the king actually isn't dead and that he was alive the whole time secretly. It's happened so many times. We've actually talked about this before in like our Davy Jones video as to like how Davy Jones is probably still alive because of that, but that's, a story for another time. But like, given that this happens so much with Oda's writing and how he tells these stories and these arcs, which I guess all ultimately relates back to what happened during the Void Century, that just makes me think right there that Harold is probably still alive. And yes, we do see Loki kill him at the end of chapter 1170. A couple chapters before this, at the end of God Valley, we see Garp and Roger use their ultimate attacks on Rox, who is Dami Reversied. Now, Harold wasn't Dami Reversied, but he still did have like the regeneration ability that comes with Dami Reversied. And they like blow Rox apart, seemingly killing him at that point. But in the chapter after that, we saw that Rox wasn't killed. And that he was actually like back together, but just as a human again. He wasn't Dami Reversied anymore. So I don't see why the same thing couldn't happen to Harold, especially since Oda specifically showed us that this is a possibility. So I guess what do you think about that at first?
Yeah, so personally, I'm not the biggest believer of this theory, but I would love to play ball, just with the theory that King Harold could be that guy. So when it comes to this, I could see there being ways where this could work. I think you brought up a really good point where a lot of kings in One Piece are presumably dead for a while, and then they're later shown to be alive. I never really noticed that until now. I always knew about the king aspect. Like, yeah, the kings are really big, but you're right. Like, King Riku was that way. Cobra was that way. I feel like there's one or two. Oh, yeah, Gonfall was that way as well. There's, like, another one that I'm just, like, missing.
Sukiyaki wasn't, like, straight up said to be dead.
Sukiyaki.
But he was gone. And then out of nowhere...
Yeah, he was gone.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, he's... whatever the guy with the Tengu's mask name was, I forget his name, but it was revealed to be him.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I didn't even think about that.
And he also
so funny.
And he also was protecting the poneglyph in Wano.
He was. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with King Harold being alive, like, it is possible. We don't know how the Mark of the Abyss works. And with Loki's fruit being one of the two that should be great at countering Emu's powers, yeah, who's to say that it doesn't help, like, destroy the mark alone and not King Harold explicitly, right? For Luffy, for example, we're expecting Luffy to liberate the characters with the mark or liberate the Domi Reversied citizens. If that is one of the two powers, maybe Loki's the same way, where he can liberate his father. I don't think it's awful. Like I said, I'm not the biggest believer in it because we would have to then explain, like, the black ship, right? King Harold, we've seen his ship. It's not black. So that is why I want to outright say it's not him. And then, of course, like, we have to keep in mind, like, the whirlpool powers, right? Whoever the man marked by flames is, they can create whirlpools at will. King Harold doesn't have that powers yet. He does have, like, the whole, like, thing where he's, like, the monster in the mist, which I think is pretty funny. Like, he attacked one guy on a foggy day, and now he just has that epithet. Another thing is the world government tie-in. I think King Harold works for that perfectly. You know, former world government soldier, so I think that's pretty nice. And we do know that King Harold has been to Fishman Island, so we could say that he has the Fishman Island poneglyph because of his ties to King Neptune. I don't think that'd be awful. Like, I think there's ways where this could work. I do not think it's a bad theory. So, yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, you mentioned those two key aspects, which also I thought was interesting because Oda in the flashback of Harold shows us just those two instances pretty quick. He shows us that he was hey guys, by the way, he was the monster in the mist for a little bit and he was destroying pirate ships out there. And he was just a giant monster coming out of nowhere. And we see him, like, split the ships in half. And when you do look at the panel that we've been referencing where Lafitte and Shiryu talk about the man marked by flames, or the man with the burn scar, the ship that's going into the whirlpool is, like, split in half, which is interesting.
I was about to say, like, just real quick, one more thing about King Harold where this could actually work. We heard early on in Elbaf, which that sounds crazy to say, it was like this year, or last year, I should say now. When Frankie was taking the tour with Ripley, we saw a branch of the Atom Tree that was destroyed. And that's when we first learned that fire is Elbaf's weakness. Like, oh yeah, fire and lightning now, that'll destroy the tree. What if that's where the black ship comes from? It's like a burnt part of the Atom Tree. And that's why King Harold has the black ship. It's because it's from that broken branch. And that was like a hint towards that all along.
That's a great theory. Because that hasn't been explained either as to what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like a random plot point, right? Like, we could say that it's been wrapped up because it's just to explain that lightning is a weakness. But what if it was a double thing where it's like, yeah, no, somebody made a ship out of that burnt branch and it was just King Harold.
It makes sense to me. I mean, honestly, guys, I'm not trying to, like, hype you up or be too assertive on this theory. The way that Oda works, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if this is the case, because other than that, it would just have to be some random character that just comes out of nowhere, because I just don't think that's going to be the case anymore, since we are towards the very end of the series here. Or not the very end, but we're at the end. I just don't expect there to be any more like just, hey, this guy was out there the whole time. He's the man marked by flames. He has this devil fruit that creates whirlpools. I mean, that's also a possibility. I don't know how to explain the whirlpools. I would like to, if it is Harold, I would like to assume that he's just causing them somehow without a devil fruit possibly. Unless that is like a perfect narration that we're getting from Lafitte, where, yes, this means that he does have a devil fruit that creates whirlpools. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because also it goes back to him, the monster in the mist, or whatever that was called. And then you also mentioned King Neptune. It shows us just for like half a page or one page, maybe 2 pages, but that Harold randomly was friends with King Neptune. Now, this is important because the last time that we saw the last road poneglyph that no one has yet, the last piece that they're missing, that supposedly this man marked by flames would be having, was at Fishman Island. And then randomly, it just wasn't there anymore within like the last 20 years or something, right? Something like that.
Like I said, it's not a bad theory. I don't think it's that awful. Like, the whirlpools are the one giant thing we have to like overcome. Like, how is that possible? Maybe he has like a crew of fishmen. Like, that could be it, you know? And then, like, why would he do this? I guess that's another key aspect to keep in mind. Like, why would King Harold gatekeep the One Piece? Like, out of everybody in the world, King Harold is like, you know what? The One Piece, I need to protect it. Like, that seems odd. It's a very random quest to give yourself.
Aside from the whirlpool and the black ship thing, that's what I was also wondering. It's like, why is he gatekeeping the Last Road Poneglyph? Unless he's just trying to make sure that the right person gets it, which I don't know why he just wouldn't give it to Loki, or he was waiting for Loki, or I don't know, maybe he made some kind of deal with Shanks. But then again, Shanks would just instantly go get it as well. Yeah, I just don't know about that, which is, I guess, one of the big lingering pieces here. But then I guess we just get into like the mark, the flame mark itself. When Loki is fighting against Harold in the last chapter, before his death, there's flames everywhere. The throne room is on fire,
yeah.
Right? That's right there. And also, like, when Loki hits him with Ragnar and, like, it breaks him apart, that could leave, like, a scar or something when he comes back together. Because, like I said, it's not confirmed that he's still alive. It's actually said that he's dead. But then again, there's been so much unreliable narration in Elbaf so far. But it just goes back to what I was saying. Rox somehow came back together. Like, he was blown apart, and then he came back together and he was a normal person again. Because I guess the overwhelming Conqueror's Haki overcame the covenant that was made by Emu. And we know that, of course, Loki is using Conqueror's Haki when he defeats Harold. He has to. But Harold is, like, not coding himself, or at least it's implied that he's not. And that's how he defeats him. So if he is using Conqueror's Haki or Advanced Conqueror's Haki, he could be, in theory, overcoming the Covenant. Because we were talking about that. Like, how do you overcome the Covenant ability? How do you overcome Dominating Adversity? You just have to beat the crap out of the person, essentially. So, yeah, do you have anything else with that? Because I'm just... I mean, this is, like, the long and the short of it. It could be Harold... I just don't know why he's gatekeeping the Last Road Poneglyph.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially just what it boils down to. And then, of course, like, how would we see him in this year? Because Oda, in his Jump Festa message, of course, his timelines are really bad. He's mentioned that before. But he seems very confident that we're going to see the man marked by flames this year. So that man is either in Elbaf, will show up to Elbaf, or he's on the very next island, which is possibly just going to be Lodestar. So, like, that's another thing, too, right? Like, if it is King Harold, let's just play with the hypothetical. Where would we actually see him? Because I don't think he's in Elbaf anymore, right? If we're saying he's taking up this mantle and leaving with the Poneglyph, I doubt he's anywhere nearby. I doubt he wants anybody to discover the secret. So, yeah, like, how do we actually run into him at this point? Is he just at Lodestar, the very next island, just hanging out? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that makes me think that it could be Harold, because Oda did say in that Jump Festa thing that we are going to see him soon. And if we're going to see him soon, it's going to be during this arc. And this arc is tying into Harold and everything with the flashback. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just randomly, I don't know, either shows up or Loki knows about this. You know, at the end of the arc, or whenever they wrap up what they're doing with Emu and the Holy Knights, the Straw Hats are like, okay, we have to go get the Last Road Poneglyph, but we have to find this man marked by flames, or the man with the burn scar or whatever. And Loki's like, well, that's actually my dad, Harold. I already knew this, because he's already
It's my father.
He's already lied about Harold. Well, not technically lied, but he withheld the truth. He didn't tell everybody what had happened that day, and he willingly, I don't know if he willingly allowed himself to get in prison. He wasn't defeated by Shanks. So maybe Shanks has something to do with that too, because why was Shanks going to Elbaf other than I just visiting? But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to put that out there. I think this is a possibility. I wouldn't waste your guys' time with this video if I genuinely didn't think this was a possibility. Because just think about it. It's what we were talking about in the beginning of the video. Almost every king that is said to be gone or dead winds up coming back at the end of the arc. So why not?
Yeah,
this time
it happens,
as well?
dude.
Yeah, just go back yourself and just look at all of the arcs with the kings. It's said that they're gone to some extent, and then they come back, which is why not with this one too? Especially the way that Harold has been built up. He's this tragic character, and it's like, okay, this is him redeeming himself. he doesn't want to go back to Elbaf and be the king anyway, because he was talking about how he wanted a better king. Like, he essentially wanted Loki or Hyrule, Loki, because Hyrule is a weakling. He would need Loki to, become the new king or the new leader of Elbaf. So he's not going to come back, especially now that he's disgraced with, the thing that he did with Emu and everything. So this is his way of redemption. And then maybe there's some Shaggy element to this as well, because that hasn't been revealed yet, who Loki is talking to on the Denden Mushi. When Harold was talking to Neptune, he said that, yeah, you're having this daughter, Shirahoshi, or whatever. I don't think they said Shirahoshi, but you're having a daughter, and she's going to be Shaggy like you. Or, I'm paraphrasing. So there's something there, too. I'm not saying that Shaggy is Harold. That would be interesting if it was just Harold talking to Loki this whole time.
That would be crazy.
But he would just know Harold's voice, unless he's doing something with his voice
or
something. But I think there's something there, too. Because we know that Garling gave Harold that long-distance transponder snail, that Denden Mushi. And that was just said real quick, too. There's a lot of, things that happen like that in the flashback. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, he was the lurking mist guy. Oh, by the way, he knows Neptune. Oh, by the way, Garling gave Harold this long-distance transponder snail, which hasn't been mentioned again yet, unless it was just a way to explain how he's communicating with them. But then again, that wouldn't even be necessary, because he could just, telekinetically speak with Emu. I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, guys.
So Oda made some comments about One Piece going into 2026. And he more or less said that he's going to be speed running it. Like, we're moving at a pace that it hasn't moved at before. Meaning that maybe Elbaf will end. Maybe we're going to get closer to the One Piece than we ever have. But let me break down the exact comment that he made. He said, after what you could call a very long flashback, or at least a little glimpse into history that I'm sure has given you a different perspective on Elbaf, we ended things with a bang. And now things are about to get crazy. We will get to the island that only King of the Pirates had previously reached? Question mark. The man with the bird scar will appear. Characters who we'd never met before will finally meet. Another pair of characters will come face to face. I think next year will be a year of encounters. The story will be moving at a breakneck speed, and since I've aged, much to my jargon, I'll take the liberty of maintaining my own health as we continue sailing next year at the fastest One Piece speed. So, what do you make of that? I'm sure you talked about this before, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, when it comes to Oda's Jump Festa message, it essentially just tells us we're going full speed ahead. We're just picking up the pace, and I don't think that's super shocking to anybody. I mean, look at God Valley, right? We all like God Valley, but I think we can all agree that we could have gotten more. We could have gotten more fleshed out fights, more interactions, etc., etc. But Oda decided to, kind of fast forward through it, and I think the same will be said here in Elbaf even, and moving on to future arcs. Yeah, it'll still be great, but I think there will be little instances where Oda's gonna kind of skip over things or just speed it up, maybe not focus too much on the fights, just to get to the end of One Piece before, he gets too old. I just keep on going back to when Oda said, yeah, guys, One Piece, it's ending in 3-4 years, and then here we are all these years later, and it's to a point where Oda's like, yeah, I should have been done by now, but, it is what it is. So, as far as that goes, that's nice and dandy, but that does mean that we will be meeting that man marked by Flame pretty soon. We're going to be hitting Lodestar, we're going to be hitting Laugh-Tale just right after Elbaf, and I'm excited for it, man.
Yeah, so do you think that's the island that he means? He says, we will get to the island that only the King of Pirates had previously reached. I mean, normally I think our brain just gravitates towards Laugh-Tale, where the One Piece is, but that's, nonsense. We're not getting there this year. But Lodestar is an island. It's apparently the last island in the Grand Line. I don't know if it said that only Roger had been there, but that's the only person we know of that had been there. We don't really know anything about it except its name and that it's the last place in the Grand Line. So you think that's what he's talking about here?
Yeah, I think he's talking about Lodestar. There was a line where it said Lodestar was an island only the Pirate King has ever reached, which is kind of crazy. It's not like anything's necessarily guarding it. Like, you just follow the log pose and it'll eventually take you there. But I guess nobody really cared to, like, follow it as much as Roger did. I bet there's people who, like, visited Lodestar nowadays, but, you know, back during Roger's era, he was the first guy. And the way they described it, it is pretty one-to-one with how the Jump Festa message goes. So I think we will be hitting Lodestar. It makes sense. I've seen people saying that we don't have to go there because we know about the road poneglyphs. Because that island is where Roger found out that there's another island. He went there and he's like, wait a minute, this isn't the end. There's like something else out there. Then he found Laughtail. So people are like, oh, because the Straw Hats know about Laughtail already, we don't have to go. But the thing is that Roger found something there, though. Like, there is something there that tells you that there's another island. I like to imagine it might be like Jaya, where we got to Jaya, and it was like, oh yeah, look at this weird island. Like, it's this really strange shape. Look at Mont Blanc Cricket's house. It's like half a house. Like, what's going on here? And then we find out that Skypiea is the missing half, and that's how, like, you know, we could have pieced it together a lot sooner. I think Lodestar might be the same way, where we get there, and it's like, oh, this is a cool island, but it's missing something. And then that's probably how Roger found out that Laughtail existed. So I think there is going to be some, like, Void Century history there, something important. Could even be, like, the Ancient Kingdom. You know, we know that Joy Boy's treasure is the One Piece. Maybe Lodestar is like the remains of the Ancient Kingdom.
Yeah, I do think that there has to be some kind of Void Century tie into it, for especially at this point in the story, for it to have some kind of significance other than it just being some random place. And I always wondered if they are going to go there, because I guess they are. I mean, it was mentioned that it's the last place in the Grand Line in the New World. So I'm sure the Straw Hats will have some kind of incentive to go there. And then it also says that we will meet the burn scar, the man with the burn scar, the man marked by flames. I don't know if he literally means it will be happening this year, because that's another thing. I don't know everything that he's saying here is like factual. Like if it like literally means it will be 2026 that this is happening.
I hope so.
Because, man, so many things will have to happen here. We'll have to meet the man marked by flames, which we could in Elbaf. And then Elbaf has to be over, and then they go to Lodestar, which could all happen in, like, a couple chapters. Not everything ending, but just them going to Lodestar in the first place. But, I don't know, maybe the man with the burn scar, the man marked by flames, coincides with Lodestar for some reason. Neither he's there or he tells them to go there, because that's where, like, the last road poneglyph is. But that would be too linear, you know, like, oh, the last road poneglyph is actually on the last island. I put it there.
That could make sense. I mean, hey, if Roger was the only guy who went there beforehand, like the former Pirate King, maybe the man marked by flame sees that as a requirement. Like, hey, you have to hit the Pirate King island then.
Yeah, I just don't know any other reason why you would have to go there, because it seems like Roger just already showed the reason of going there. It was like he figured out that Laughtail was a thing. So, I mean, unless they just go there just because they have to, like the log post forces them to go there, because, you know, the way that the Grand Line or just the New World is, like, you can't just willy-nilly go anywhere you want. You kind of have to follow where it allows you to go, essentially. So maybe that's why they have to go there to some point. We'll see. And then the other ambiguous speak that Oda has here, this is like peak Oda. Characters who had never met before will finally meet. Another pair of characters will come face to face. I've seen other translations where it says like, that man will meet that man, and this man will see. I don't even know where to begin with this stuff, because the possibilities are endless. I mean, I've seen people speculating about it, saying like, oh, this means that Luffy's going to meet Dragon, or this is going to, it's like, no way. At least not yet. So I don't really know what to make of that. Unless you have any theories, and I don't think, there's no way.
No. It's way too ambiguous. It could literally mean, like, the most important meetup of, like, Luffy and Shanks, Luffy, Dragon. But it could also just be BS, where it's like, oh, actually, Gaimon met Buggy again. It's like, well, okay, cool. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it could be anything.
I'm sure you remember, what was it, like 2018, 2019, 2020, around that time, when Oda made another Jump Festa thing where he said, we will meet the lurking legend in Wano. Something like that, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know who the hell that was.
Didn't mean anything.
Yeah, hey, we're gonna meet the lurking legend. It's like, who was that guy? Like, who's the lurking legend of the One Piece world that Oda was talking about? We'll never know. That's just a mystery, I guess. And then people thought it was going to be Scopper. They're like, oh, there's a guy in Elbath.
I was just going to say that. Maybe he had planned Scopper for Wano, then he was like, nah, I'll just save him for Elbath.
I have no clue, man. The only Jump Fest message that, like, in my, like, recent recollection that makes sense, that guy's going to fight that guy, that guy's going to fight that guy. Because that was the year we got Law versus Blackbeard, Garp versus Kuzan and the Blackbeard Pirates. We got Shanks versus Kid. I think that one is, like, more like, okay, yeah, I could see where it is going now.
He said that coming into 2023. He was like, these guys are going to fight, and then it was the Shanks. I mean, it was like the Supernovas versus the other ones year. Okay. Yeah. And then the most important part here, the story will be moving at a breakneck speed, but since I've aged much to my chagrin, I'll be taking the liberty of maintaining my own health as we continue sailing into the next year at the fastest One Piece speed. So I don't want to worry anybody with this. In my genuine opinion, I don't think One Piece is ending anytime soon. It couldn't even if it wanted to. And then as for Oda maintaining his health, as he should, I mean, he seemingly is a very unhealthy person, lifestyle-wise, so I hope he decides to, like, make better choices to just improve his overall health. Rather than just working less, just eat better, exercise, you know, that can happen too, but moving at a breakneck speed for One Piece can only go so far because there can only be so many chapters in a year anyway. There's 52 weeks in a year, and he takes, you know, a break every 3 weeks, along with the mandatory breaks for holidays and just the magazine in general. You can only pump out like 30-something chapters a year, right? How much actually happens in 30 chapters? Like, a lot happens, but it's not like an arc. It's only a portion of an arc. You know, I just want to put that out there for you guys. Yes, he is talking about moving faster, but the story can only go so fast regardless of how much he wants. And I don't think Oda is just going to suddenly break his style or just betray himself as an author and just like suddenly cut corners and just, you know, we get done Elbath in like 3 or 4 chapters. That's just not going to happen in my opinion. I think he just kind of just says this stuff to just, I don't know, make people, maybe he feels like people are kind of annoyed or something, or he's just saying things to make people feel a certain way, but I think it's going to be business as usual. It's just going to move at the same pace that it always has. Maybe it'll move a little faster. Maybe it'll move at similar, like you were saying, to like God Valley-esque speed, but I don't think it's going to be rushed at all. And if I did feel that way, I would say it for sure. I'm not trying to, you know, make you guys feel good or try to be way too optimistic. Just genuinely how I feel. I think it's pretty much going to be the same. It's just going to move maybe a little faster. That's about it. I mean, I still do think we have like 8 years before the story ends or something like that. I mean, there's so much needs to happen. And like I said, there can only be 30-something chapters a year.
I give it like 4 or 5 years, but we'll see.
Really? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I think so. That feels right.
Let's say 6. Let's meet in the middle. We'll say 6.
Okay. I'm cool with 6.
I think that's a fair estimate. 6 years. So like 2032, somewhere around there. Because I'm also just putting a year out there just for the Void Century flashback. I think that will take a year in itself to complete.
There's a lot of story to tell there. I mean, I feel like the Void Century is gonna have to explain pretty much every single thing, and it'll probably also explain why islands are the way they are. Like in his lobby, for example, like that's an island with like the giant hole underneath it, and it has eternal sunlight. So it's like, okay, we're gonna see something there. For example, the Florian Triangle, another great example. I bet we're gonna get like the origins of Aqua Laguna. Like we're gonna have to get the origins of so many things.
Man, I can't wait to see how he ties everything together. He will. He's not going to forget about things. He will have it all tied together because it's integral to the story. He put it there for a reason. So Oda, the creator of One Piece, in celebration of selling 600 million copies of One Piece, put the secret to the One Piece itself at the bottom of the ocean somewhere, 651 meters deep. So we're going to get into like the weeds of this thing, like where it could be, how much it would cost to go after this thing, who's going to find it. But before we get into that, let's say you find this chest by chance. It washes up on your shore. Are you opening it and like finding out what it is?
Honestly, I feel like the most One Piece answer from a fan would be to not open it, destroy it, get rid of it. But I'm gonna be so honest, Zhoniin. I would open it do a live stream about it, and then I'd make like 10 different videos about it. I'm sorry, guys. I want to know, man. You know, I would love to see, even if it wasn't for like YouTube, I would totally open it on the side on my own. You know, I really do just want to know. Like, the thing is, I think you're asking like the wrong person, because me and you, we both do spoilers. I mean, I do spoilers for, and the thing is, it isn't just like a One Piece thing. Oh, he only does One Piece spoilers. Dude, I look up the ending to movies before I watch them. That's just how it is, man. I love spoilers across the board.
But you're right, we are the spoiler guys, so granted, we're probably going to look at it. I mean, I was just curious about you because you seem to be more morally sound than I am. You're like a better person than I am, so maybe you would have held the integrity. Okay.
I'm not. And the thing is, this is gonna sound crazy, I do semi-blame Oda and his team for doing this, because it feels like they didn't hide it good enough. Of course, nobody's found it yet, but it's not like inaccessible. Like, really, just, you don't even have to be like necessarily wealthy to get it. You do need a lot of money, but I feel like your iShow Speeds or Mr. Beast, they could find it with ease if they really wanted to, which I don't think is necessarily a good thing.
Well, when you say that, it's like, I guess Oda wants this. He wants there to be like a real life search for the One Piece. Like, he's just grown so eccentric in his...
I don't know. Like, I don't think Oda wants people to find out about it.
I mean, why would he do this?
I think it's promo. I think it is really exciting to see, but I don't know if he expected like anybody to go after it seriously.
Or maybe he underestimated people and their abilities nowadays.
Yeah. I think he also like underestimated like the lengths people would go to find it, which I'm not gonna look for it, but you know, power to all the other people who do want to do it. And I wonder if, for example, Ashio Speed, love him or hate him, he is a very like good content creator. He's rich. He could literally find it within a week if he wanted to. And the thing is, I wonder if Oda's team would reach out and say, hey, can you not find it? It's a serious thing. Like, I wonder if people like will get reached out to saying, hey, can you like not look for the One Piece, because like you're gonna find it.
Yeah, I think if Speed, who by the way, he said that he wanted to find this. I don't know how serious he is about it. You can look up the articles. I'll have it on the screen or whatever. I don't know if he's actually going to do it, but that's why we're saying I show Speed. The type of person that Speed is, at least what I know of him from what I've seen, I feel like if Oda did reach out to him, he would respect it and be like, okay, I will.
Yeah.
But other people, not so much. You know, other streamers, they would just for sure do it and not care. But let's take a look at what people have found so far, because apparently some people have like kind of located where this could be. So TLDR, it's probably around the Suguru Bay in Shizuoka, just going off of the trailer footage of like the Japanese Coast Guard ships putting it down there. So apparently it's somewhere around there. But since it's like 651 meters down, that's incredibly deep. And everything that you would need, it would cost around 95 grand a day, more or less, to be able to do this. And somebody like Speed could do that for sure. I'm sure he makes that in a day or a couple days. And then Mr. Beast, if Mr. Beast cared enough, he could for sure do this. And like you said, Oda would probably be like, hey, don't. Or he just says, hey, I don't care, you're a pirate. That's what this series is about, doing what you want, being the most free.
I don't know if he wants it out there, which I think that's the one thing that would stop me from like looking at, or not looking at it. I look at it regardless. The one thing from stopping me from like posting about it is if just Oda said, hey, please don't do it. I'd be like, okay, sure, fair enough. But my own curiosity though, I wouldn't stop it.
No, even if Oda asked me not to do it, I would still do it for my own enjoyment. However, I would not tell anybody.
I open it, just not tell anybody.
I wouldn't tell anybody, even though I know that the video that I would make about it or whatever, the stream would get millions of views probably, and then you would get a couple tens of thousands of dollars, even though it's not really worth it in the end because of how you would ruin everything for everybody. That's not my intention, even though I do make spoiler videos. But I want to know for myself because it's just too good to pass up. Like, knowing what this is years ahead of time.
You're the one person in the world that knows. Yeah, that'd be nice, right? Like, who wouldn't want that? Everybody wants to be a little bit special. But then again, would you open yourself up to like torturers? Like, do you think somebody would like break into your house and like tear off your toes until you tell them what it is?
No, I wouldn't be worried about people trying to come after me for it. Ultimately, I would just sell it if they wanted to buy it. They'd be like, here's $1 million and you tell us. Like, all right, deal. I can be bought. Besides all of that, do you think that this, in a roundabout way, is probably pointing at the One Piece itself in the actual story, meaning that it's like at the bottom of the sea or something?
I think that's cool. Yeah. You know, when it comes to the like Laugh Tale itself, there's got to be a reason why nobody's found it. If it's like randomly in the middle of the ocean underwater, yeah, not a lot of people would actually look there. And there's not a lot of pirates out there that have submarines either, like Law. I think so far there's only like 3 submarines in the entire series that we've seen. So it's like, yeah, it's extremely rare. So I've been leaning towards either underwater island or just an invisible island, kind of like an early One Piece filler arc. Never really explained, by the way, but there's like an invisible like force field around an island, and you could only go there if you knew like its exact location. Those are my 2 main like routes for like Laugh Tale and why it's so hidden.
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately has to be something like that. But there's, other things that could point to this. You know how Oda revealed that like the world was at a lower depth of water or whatever. The ocean wasn't so high back in the day, and that a previous civilization is being covered by water right now. That probably has something to do with it because, Emu raising the water through ancient weapon stuff. And then another thing that I always think about is like in the very beginning of the series when we see Buggy and Shanks's flashback, Buggy has like that treasure map. I don't know if that's Captain John's treasure or whatever, but he has like a treasure map and he's talking to Shanks and he says like, yeah, there's this great treasure at the bottom of the sea. And I always thought about that.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially given like the water levels, like you said. The one thing we kind of have to explain, well, I guess it could be easily explained if like there's a bubble around the island. But like when Roger went there, it looked like none of them had diving suits. So maybe there's like a giant bubble that just has oxygen, a pink bubble at that, because iconically like the He Laughs scene, it's like there's like pink flowers everywhere there. So it's like, it's interesting.
Yeah, I never tried to put too much into the pink misty location. I thought it was just Toei trying to be ambiguous about where they were. I mean, maybe it means something. I don't know, but I just assumed that it just meant nothing. It's just trying to obscure the environment. So in chapter 1175 of One Piece, Jarl explains that in Elbaf we have a legend about a warrior god. He wielded a weapon known as Ragnir, Iron Lightning, and turned into an enormous dragon to face off against the sun god. He fought alongside a trusted, loyal ice squirrel known as Ratatoskr. And we actually get to see what this looks like. It's pretty crazy. But the main thing that people have been talking about here, which I think is a really interesting theory, is that this warrior god, or in some translations, god of war, might be the skull that we see on Onigashima. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I heard this theory. I really enjoy it. I'd say it's not bad. I mean, eventually we do have to explain like what that skull at Onigashima is. Like, where did it come from? I mean, it has similar horns, if I recall, to the warrior god as well. So if you want to say that's him, I'm down for it.
They are 1-for-1 the same. Now, granted, those horns are kind of common. Kaido has those horns, more or less, and then other ancient giant or giant type of... I mean, even Jarl has those horns. Jarl has those horns, too.
Special. But it is something we gotta like factor in, right? Like, does this skull have this horn? I mean, the one thing though about this is that means that this giant was larger than your average ancient giant, which I think makes sense. It feels like a lot of things in the Void Century were just massive in general. But, again, going back to like Elbaf, I guess that would kind of explain that giant sword. Like, if the giant was Onigashima size, yeah, he could probably wield that Elbaf sword, because that sword is also very massive.
Yeah, that sword is one of the biggest things, because it's like stuck into the Atom Tree, and the Atom Tree is one of the biggest things in the world, if not the biggest thing in the world. I don't even know, but
I mean, maybe the sword is bigger than the giant though, because I mean, size scaling in One Piece is pretty hard, and since Elbaf is like much bigger than Onigashima, maybe it's not even possible for this person, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, because even on Onigashima, there's like a katana in the side of it, which is relative to the size of the skull, and there's no katana in this sequence. Nika doesn't have one, and the warrior god doesn't have one either. Even though the warrior god does have like a sword in his hilt alongside with Ragnar, he doesn't have like a katana, or at least it doesn't look like it.
Nico kind of looks like he has a katana, but it's hard to tell. It could just be like a straight sword with like a katana like hilt.
Yeah, it is hard to make out, but it could be. I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, I mean, maybe. I'm not opposed to this, and I think it would be cool, because I don't want to just accept that Onigashima was made like Kaido just made that skull there to look like that, because I would rather it be like, a skull of an actual person that existed.
The guy's like the #1 architecturist out there, just, hey, like, I want a skull thing. And then somebody on the crew's like, yep, I'll do it.
Yeah, make it horns that, like the horns that I have. But it would be much cooler if that was actually a person that existed, or a thing that existed. And I'm totally on board with things just being that big back in the day, because, we've seen on the mural the Hellfire Serpent. That thing is implied to be massive. So if there were gods, because it's heavily imply that there were these godlike beings that existed pre-Void Century, pre-Devil Fruits. And if they are gods, then yes, they're freaking huge. Bigger than Loki, bigger than Harold, you know, the biggest things ever. They were just gods. I don't know why they were that way. They were just special beings that existed back in the day. And if that is true, then Nika, or at least this variant of Nika that we see here, it was essentially, let's just call it for what it is, Black Nika. he's black. I'm not saying he's African American. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's like a pitch black figure. Maybe reminiscent of Emu even, which is kind of crazy to think about.
There's another video that maybe we should do is Emu Nika, which maybe one day if we're running really dry.
About that.
Yeah, or at least this version of Nika. But another thing about that is if this guy is the Skull and Onigashima, this warrior god, god of war, or whatever, then Ragnar would be even bigger than that. And clearly it is not. But we've talked about this before. Sizes of weapons and things change in One Piece. Like Odin's sword, it changed when Zoro had it.
It changed when it was in a box as well, because it was like really big with Odin, like you said, and then Odin dies, and then it just fits into like a normal size box after that. It's like, wait, what? We don't question size too much in One Piece, so it's really tough to say.
Hopefully Oda decides to go a couple chapters into pre-Void Century stuff, because he's kind of setting it up here now. Like this God of War guy, or the warrior god, we didn't know about him. This is the first time we ever see him, and he's not silhouetted, which is great. I love it. I can't believe this guy wasn't silhouetted. Also, it says that this, after the God of War died, again, I mean, of course he was going to die, it's over 1,000 years ago or whatever, or, you know, implied to be that long. That's another thing. Maybe that's a skull on Onigashima, but it says that without its master, Ratatoskr chose to inhabit his weapon instead. The way that I was going about this was like he just became a devil fruit later, and then Ragnar ate the devil fruit, you know, in quotations. What did you make of this? Because as far as we know, there's like no other way to explain this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly where you are. I mean, that's the thing, right? What we have heard about time and time again is devil fruits possessing items. We still don't know how that works, so I'm down with that being the case, but we have to also acknowledge that this is so long ago that genuinely anything is possible. Like if Oda wanted to, he could be like, yes, you know, devil fruits didn't exist yet, so he actually did just possess this random weapon. It's like, okay, cool. Thanks, Oda.
Yeah, because there is soul stuff, right? Whatever Brook's devil fruit is poking at, there's soul stuff going on. That's the best way I could put it. There's soul stuff going on.
Yeah, we still don't know like anything about that, by the way. Like the soul stuff just kind of it's there, man. And I don't think that's necessarily special to Brook's devil fruit. I mean, it is for sure with the revive no me, but I'm sure there's like other soul-based abilities you could just do. Like magic exists in One Piece, which is crazy to say. Like Hawkins, for example, the card stuff that he does, that's not related to his devil fruit. He just has magic, dude. And then Emu, we don't know if it's devil fruit yet either. He's got magic.
That's a great point about Hawkins. I totally forgot about that. He was just doing magic. Magic is a thing in One Piece, and it predates devil fruits. I mean, I guess that's the implication here. Because, you know, with Emu, I don't think that's devil fruit stuff, whatever they're doing. I think that's pre-Void Century, like hard magic that doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, unless you're like Hawkins or Emu or whatever. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to put this out here. I thought it was a pretty interesting theory. Points more at just these crazy mythical beings that existed pre-Void Century that we're just getting a taste of now. And I think as time goes on, we're going to get more into these beings because, you know, like the Hellfire Serpent, the dragon thing, the forest god, the rain god, they need to be explored too. And I'm pretty sure they're massive or ultra powerful and magical in some way as well. So
there is one person out there, current day, minus the Roger crew, because they know the truth of the world, that knows what Onigashima was. And that is Marco. Because when they first talked about Onigashima, Marco, he has a distinctive line where he says, oh, so that's what they're calling that nowadays. So he knows what that originally was or is. So that is one big detail as well, which, dude, it pains me sometimes because like we meet all these characters that have so much knowledge and we never just sit them down and say, hey, what's up? Like, what do you know, man? Like there's no information sharing in One Piece, which I get it. You know, if we do that, we're gonna like, we probably already know what the One Piece is to some extent.
That's all you need. Just get a meeting of the minds and you guys in the One Piece world will figure it out.
What if I told you that the One Piece was sent to the future, and that's why no one can really find it right now, because nowhere to be found. It's kind of just in limbo, and it's eventually going to appear very soon. And this is a theory that we're going to be reacting to that came from Reddit, from the user funbread123, that during the Void Century, whoever had Toki's Devil Fruit, Toki, the wife of Odin, who had the Time Devil Fruit, sent the One Piece itself into the future so that at that point in time it could be fully utilized. And also, I guess, protected from Emu and, the Celestial Dragons at that time from getting it themselves, possibly. Because, first of all, as they point out, why does Toki really exist? Which I was curious about too. I mean, yes, I know of her significance and, plot device in Wano sending the scabbards into years, but it's like, did we need to have an entire character and Devil Fruit dedicated to just for that happening? It seems like there's more to Toki and that Devil Fruit, because, there probably was a user who had it before her, as well with all of the current Devil Fruits and all of that stuff, and that might line up with things. Also, why is no one going after the One Piece currently, and why did Roger laugh at Laughtail, and why did the Roger Pirates say that they were just too early? What do you make of that, Sai?
Yeah, there's a lot here. When it comes to this theory, I'm not opposed to it. I just do think there are a couple of holdups, or there are a couple of explanations we could look at. As far as why nobody has gone after the One Piece beforehand, like why Whitebeard was sitting on his laurels, Big Mom, Kaido, and all these other beasts in the New World, I think it's as simple as it's hard to get the poneglyphs. Kaido has one, Big Mom has the other. Fishman Island one is missing after Roger found it. And then the other one's at Zou, which is a traveling elephant island, which is normally hard to find unless you have a log pose, or should I say, eternal pose to it, or a Vivre car that leads you to it. I think that's one reason why a lot of people haven't really sought after it. And then even if you get the poneglyphs, you have to be able to read it. And there's not a lot of people in One Piece that can actually read the poneglyphs, right? We have Robin, and then we have Pudding, who still hasn't awakened her third eye. I think that's one reason why Big Mom specifically hasn't gone after it, because she has no way of just doing anything with it.
So you bring that up, and that is obviously a very good point. Or why do you think Shanks is suddenly going after the One Piece right now? It was recently within the timeline of the story itself, where he said, now it's time to go after the One Piece. I think he has kids rubbings of the road poneglyph, right, or something. I think he stole them from him, or his crew did.
Yeah.
But I think that's all he has, and as far as we know, he doesn't have someone who can read the poneglyphs. So that's confusing.
Yeah, that's a big question. We don't know how Shanks is going to read it. We do know that, if you have the voice of all things, you can kind of hear the intentions of the poneglyphs, which, again, we don't know if Shanks has that or not. We barely know anything about Shanks' crew. He's been out on the open seas for decades at this point, so there is a chance he knows somebody who could read it, which is why when he went to Wano, I was of the mindset that maybe he goes for Momonosuke or Sukiyaki or somebody else there so that he could learn about the poneglyphs and how to read it there, but obviously he didn't dock. We didn't see that at all. As far as the timing goes, I think it might line up with Luffy, because he saw Luffy's wanted poster where he's in his sun god Nika form, he smiles, and then he says, okay, Ben Beckman, it's time to get the One Piece. I think Luffy might have been the trigger for that, because Shanks knows a lot of lore, right? I think there is a high probability that he knows about the Sun God. He knows about destiny, right? They called him the Child of Destiny. He probably knows, what that entails. So maybe he sees that Luffy is now ready. He's at that point, and now it's the perfect time to go after the good old OP. And, like I said, all my holes, they could be smoothed over. They could easily be fixed. Yeah, it can be filled. And I always say this for mini theories. Theories always look bad until we get a chapter that fixes all of it. That's usually how One Piece and I think every series out there in the world works, right? It takes one chapter to make a theory or break it. And one thing that I'd be curious about is, how does everybody know that it's not ready? Big Mom, Kaido, Whitebeard, everybody in the world. How do they know that the One Piece isn't ready? You shouldn't go after it yet. Did they have a group chat? Was there a meeting and they're like, hey guys, don't do this right now. I swear it's not there. And, if Roger laughed because nothing's at that island, would it be a little bit silly if Luffy and the gang got there and the treasure was there and they didn't laugh? We don't get the same joke that Roger did? Who would reveal that to us? Because Toki's dead. Roger, he's not going to come back from the grave and tell us why he laughed. So I feel like we might need a moment where Luffy himself laughs or the crew laughs or something of the sort. Because at that point, it wouldn't be Laugh Tale anymore if the main joke was it not being there.
That's a good point, too. I don't know if we necessarily need to have Luffy laugh as well, but now that you bring that up, I can see how Oda would probably have to have that come full circle and have parallels there, too, because he loves his parallels between the D's. So that could be a thing, too, but also Luffy being tied to all of this. There already have been prophecies about Luffy. There's been many. There was Charlie's prophecy about Fishman Island being destroyed by Luffy, essentially, or whatever that means, ambiguously saving it, probably inadvertently. That's probably what it ultimately means. But she saw many years into the future. I think it was in the latest chapter, 1174, when we see Loki and Luffy come up from the underworld to save everyone. Jarl starts like reciting what I think is probably the Harley text or something, and he's like, and then the big creature came, or the big beast came out and blotted out the sun, and whatever, and there was drums are heard or something, right? He says something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, and he says the sun god was there too. That's like implying that was all foretold to happen.
Yeah, more or less. It's either foretold to happen or this happened in the past and somebody decided to write it down, which, one more point I do want to make about like the whole sending into the future aspect. If Toki is the one who sent the One Piece to the future, I'd like to imagine she'd tell Roger or Odin about it. Like, hey guys, the treasure you're looking for, yeah, I know exactly where that's at. And also, it's not ready. Like, you're gonna get there and nothing's there. She was a part of the Whitebeard crew. And then she also knew Roger, and Odin did visit back to Wano before they went for Laugh Tale. Like he visited semi-regularly, so I like to imagine she like dropped that info.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this posits that it was the person who held her devil fruit before she did. I mean, Toki is from the Void Century, and she never talked about it, which bothered me, but that's a thing for another time. It's just, there was some kind of like prophecy that was made that knew that Luffy would be around in the future at the perfect opportune time to take advantage of the One Piece, because I don't know, like insane observation hockey, like whatever Charlie has, there was probably somebody back in the day that had that at even a higher level that could just not only see seconds into the future, but can see like hundreds of years into the future or something like that. Even if this theory isn't true, it does seem like that exists to some extent. Because how else would they know all of this prophecy stuff was, all of this was going to happen in the future? Like, they knew, the Will of D and all of this stuff, like, somebody knew something, and it was like they eventually knew that it was going to lead to this point into the future. And it's that I like the part here about how it being sent to the future kind of confuses Emu into thinking that the One Piece doesn't exist because they just saw it disappear. And that raises the question of like, okay, let's just say whether or not it was sent to the future or not, why doesn't it seem like Emu and the world government are concerned with the One Piece?
I think that's a really good question. See, that's the part of this theory I really enjoy, because I hope they do explain that, right? Just in general in One Piece, like, why hasn't the WG gone after all of this? For Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, it's like, okay, limited lifespans, they can't, they have the poneglyphs themselves, like, it's hard to get it, blah, blah, blah. But Emu has been around for 900 years. So it's like, yeah, back in the day, like 200 years ago, Kaido, Whitebeard, Big Mom, they didn't have the poneglyphs. Maybe somebody else strong did, but, Emu could have easily just gotten it at any point in time, and we know that Emu could most likely read the poneglyphs. We could just make that assumption because they're so old. So I hope they do explain that. Maybe there's like a force field that prevents Emu from going there. There's got to be some reason. Because at that point, it's like, brother, you had 900 years to either get rid of Laugh Tale, 900 years to get rid of the poneglyphs, but they just haven't done a damn thing. Which, goes back to like a theory we talked about a while ago. And I forgot how long ago this was, but I remember we touched on it. We talked about how like maybe Emu can't leave the flower room. Like, they would do this if they could, but they just simply can't. So it's in the hands of their god knights to do it. And their god knights are very, not exactly the best fighting force in the world to get the job done. Maybe that's it.
I agree. Emu probably can't leave because, I mean, everything is pointing to that. Like, why are the Gorosei and the Holy Knights able to travel through the Abyss Circle and go to all of these different places, but Emu has to keep taking over people? Like, I think that's the biggest giveaway right there.
Yeah.
But aside from that, another theory that we talked about many years ago, this is one of my favorite theories that anyone has ever come up with. Uteron, who is retired now. I won't go into, like, the whole thing, but Utegon, but he essentially said that the world government, or Emu, already has Laugh Tale. And that's like the big twist about it, is that they've had it the whole time. And I love that, you know, regardless of where it is or how they accomplished to do this, I really think that is like a fascinating and exciting thing if that is the case. But one of the things I just didn't understand with that is, like, how did Roger circumvent that, and how did they, you know, how did he get past them or whatever and get to it? Whether that's true or not, I just think it is interesting regardless of the outcome here, because it just their ties to the One Piece. Now, when we did see like that big mural of people that are possibly that could get it, you know, that big, we made a whole video dedicated to all the people we saw. I forget which chapter it was at the end of, but Emu and Garling were there. Emu, Garling, and Shamrock were in that. So I guess that's implying that they are somehow going after it or tied to the fate of the One Piece in some way. So that could be pointing to that, but it's just the fact that we never see or hear Emu talk about, let's go after the One Piece, or let's make sure the One Piece doesn't get got, or, you know, let's get the road poneglyphs or whatever. I mean, yeah, that's intrinsically what they want, but you just think that they'd be, you know, more steadfast about it. So I do like Funbread's theory here, saying that, you know, if this person, hypothetically, with the time fruit back in the day, sent the One Piece to the future, then Emu would have just thought that it vanished or didn't exist or something. And then in a fun way, that could like somehow parallel to Nolan. He showed just people, Jaya or Skypia or whatever, or Shandora, and like it got, you know, hit up into the sky by the knock upstream, but he didn't know that. When he tried to show them, they were like, what are you talking about? It's not here. All right, death penalty. You know, like that could be a fun little way to tie that back together. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of hung up on what you said earlier. Like, what if Emu already has it? And I think that's actually fun too, because it reminds me of, you know, you said that reminds you of Nolan, the opposite of this. But I think it'd be fun because it reminds me of like one of the first One Piece movies. But there was like, it was dead end adventure. They thought it was leading them to like the end of the race, like the island they're supposed to meet up at. But instead, it actually leads them to a marine base at the very end of the journey. And I was like, that would be kind of funny if like we get to Laugh Tale and, you know, maybe they didn't find it like 800 years ago or 700 years ago, but they just found it after Roger found it, because they didn't know it existed until Roger, you know, discovered the island. So maybe that's it. Like after Roger did it, the world government shortly after found it, and then it's now just like home of like the God Knights, or like maybe there's like security there, or we see a Kainu there or something. But I feel like that would semi ruin it, unless they just don't enter the island. Because I feel like it would be it's a special moment when like Luffy finds it. You know, if somebody else is there before Luffy, I'd be like, I don't know, right? Well, like imagine a Kainu's just chilling there, just waiting for them, or, you know, the God Knights are there waiting for them, and it's like, damn, they all know the treasure before we know.
Like I said, parallels, Oda loves them. You know, we'll see, but I just wanted to put this theory out there for you guys. I thought it was interesting enough to make a reaction to. Let me know in the comments what you think about the theory of the One Piece being sent to the future. And that future is going to happen like very, very soon in real time within the story. Like it's probably already happened. Maybe it's spawned now, but let me know. Check out Sai's channel. Have the link in the description as always. Have a great day, guys. See you in the next one.